Well, good morning, church. Have any of you ever felt overwhelmed and just completely exhausted? I think this continues to be one of the themes of our sermon series, this In the Pressing sermon series. And I'll be honest, this past week, I was able to take a few days off of work, but somehow I'm more tired than I think I would have been had I just gone to work all week. Anybody there right now after spring break and everything? Took some time off and now you're super tired? Here's how my week went. We left here on Sunday. Katie, she was supposed to get a flight out on Sunday, but TSA and all the stuff happened, so her flight got pushed to the next day. And that was okay. We decided to take the kids to Slick City, the slide park over at the mall, and we had fun there with the kids. It was a great family day. And after that, they have a new jungle gym at the mall, so we hung out there for a little bit. And we came home, and we were tired, but we ended up doing our grocery shopping. I took the kids out to Aldi, and we picked up all this stuff for when it was just going to be Dad and the kids all week long, because Katie's mom had a surgery, so she went home in Ohio to help out for the week, and so it was going to be Dad and the kids. The next morning, we woke up super early to make sure that with those 4-hour-long waits at TSA, I think we dropped Katie off at about 8 o'clock, and she got through the line at Hobby at 11:30 for her noon flight. It was crazy. But we got her there, and we were already in town, so we decided to go over to Herman Park, and we went to the cool playground that they have there, where there's like a rocket ship on one side and all these water features on the other, and we hung out there for a couple hours, and then we went to the Museum of Natural Sciences, which Teddy's been wanting to go to because, our kid, you name him T-Rex, and for some reason they like dinosaurs. Theodore Rex loves dinosaurs for some reason. Exactly. But we finished there, and we go home, and we'd had a great night. I was exhausted by the end of it. I'm telling the kids, we got to go. I am dying here. But the oldest, he's like, one more thing. So eventually, I get them all out of there. We walk the half a mile back to our car, and we go home, and we go outside that night, and we have a fire outside, and we watch a movie on the big projector out on our backyard, and it's a great time. And then we wake up early the next morning, and we go exactly back to the museum district, and we went to the Children's Museum, and it was an awesome time, and we were there till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was Mario Day because it was March 10th, M-A-R-1-0. And we ended up going home, and we had a cousin staying overnight, and so we found ourselves back outside late again, watching a movie on the projector with a fire going on. And then the next morning we had to get up early so that she could get picked up by her dad, and so that we could go out to Corpus Christi to go to the beach. My brother lives down there, and so we went to see him and his wife, and so we went to the beach that day, and then we went back to their house, and we did not watch a movie that night because we were all kind of tired. But then we woke up early the next day, and we went out, and we went to a craft fair, and then we went to an aquarium. My sister-in-law, she works at the University of Texas out there, and so she was able to get us into their cool aquarium exhibits and stuff, and we were able to look at all of that. And then we went back to their house, and we sat outside, and we watched a movie on the projector. And then we went inside, and then the next morning we had to wake up early because me and my older brother and my oldest child, we all had a tea time, so we went and golfed, and we got back to their house at about noon from the par 3, and we were just beat. And then I started to think about all the stuff we had to do this week. And then we hopped in the car, and we drove all the way back home, and I was so tired, we didn't watch a movie. But then the next morning, we woke up early, and my daughter had gymnastics, and then we went around. Wesley had a play date. During the play date, I took the other kids out for ice cream. All the dad stuff got done all week long, and we got to last night, and Katie's flight didn't come in till about 11 o'clock at night, so she got home at about 12:30, and I did something this morning that I haven't done in at least 12 years. I overslept before church. I woke up, I said, oh my gosh, it's 7:45. That's usually when I show up here, between 7:30 and 7:45. And so I jumped in the car, and I got a call when I was around the corner from the staff. They were wondering how they were going to divvy up my sermon. Y'all know, sometime, and through all of this, I started to think about all the stuff I have to do this next week, right? We're getting into the hyper-speed season in church. This is really like, if Christmas is the Super Bowl in the church, Easter is like the Daytona 500. It's where you have your Super Bowl at the very beginning, I guess. And we're so ready. We're only 2 weeks away from Holy Week. As of today, we are 2 weeks away from Easter eggs outside. We're going to be having our picnic after church, after the 10:30 service on that Sunday. We still need plastic eggs for that, by the way. If anybody wants to bring in any, we need 2,000 more. We probably don't need any more candy or stuff to go in the eggs, but we need a lot of plastic eggs. If you want to bring them, next week's the last Sunday to get them. All right, plugged, perfect. But we got a lot of stuff going on, and we have a lot of services to plan. We have 7 services in about 4 days. We have a Thursday night service, a Friday night service, a Saturday night service, a Sunday service, a Sunday service, a Sunday service, a Sunday service. So in 8 days, we actually have 9 services that week. So we are looking forward to a lot of busyness. And I took a week off. Can you believe that? I am so overwhelmed right now. But here's the thing. I don't say all of this to say woe is me. This is terrible for Carl. Everybody should feel bad for me. Because I know that there are so many of us in this room who are feeling this exact same things in our lives right now. Who is feeling this overwhelmed feeling in the world we live in right now? Anybody? All right, at least 3 hands went up. It's tough to see up here. But I know in our heads, a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed. We're feeling overwhelmed by the state of the world, by wars going on that we're not sure what it means for us, for our families, by the state of politics in our nation, everything going on, by what's going on in our schools these days. I have a friend in Virginia who, he's a campus pastor at Old Dominion University, and they had a shooting this week. I see all of this stuff happening, and I get overwhelmed just watching it, and then I think of all the stuff that I have to do and all the ways that I want to make sure that I am being the best I can be, and I just am exhausted. Over and over again, we're reminded that when we want to do everything we can't always get it all done. We're only human. We're doing our best. This is really what we talked about last week when we talked about the disciples and them sleeping, isn't it? Jesus, he looks at them, he says, the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. Y'all want to do this, but you just can't. I think we know this, right? We know that we're only human. We know that everybody else, anyway, is only human, and we're willing to give them grace when they don't live up to the ideals that they have for themselves. Amen? But when it's us, it's so much harder. When it's me not living up to the ideals that I want to live up to, it's so much harder. When we get into this place, we feel incredibly inadequate with who we are. We wish that we were better. We wish that we had been given a different lot. If things were slightly different, if circumstances were changed just a little bit, I could definitely handle all of this, we tell ourselves. You know, as somebody who came into adolescence in the early to mid-2000s, whenever I feel this way, I think of a particular movie. Does anybody like Lord of the Rings? Oh, thank God. Nobody liked it at 9 o'clock. There was 2 hands. I said, oh, this is going to be rough because I'm going to talk about Lord of the Rings now. If you ever walk in my office at the Kingsland campus, you can look to the left, and you'll see a giant Lord of the Rings poster. I used to have a Lord of the Rings Legolas cutout in the office at my last church. I left it there, and it's probably long gone by now. But I love Lord of the Rings, and one of the things I love about it is the overwhelming odds that people feel in this movie. Especially when Frodo, he says it. If you've never seen the movie or read the books, you know, they're almost 100 years old now, so I don't feel bad about giving stuff away. But in the story, the great and terrible Dark Lord, Sauron, he has arisen, and the only way to defeat him is to take the ring that holds most of Sauron's power, to take it to Mordor, to the fires of Mount Doom, to destroy it. The task of carrying this ring, it falls on a little hobbit, also called a halfling, because he's like a little human, and his name is Frodo. And it should be clear to anybody watching that Frodo is in over his head. There appears to be nothing special about hobbits. And I think Frodo, he understands this. After fleeing his home with this ring and being stabbed and barely making it to Rivendell, and then failing to make it through the Red Horn Pass of the Misty Mountains, he must have begun wondering whether he was really up for all of this. In a conversation that he has with the wizard Gandalf in the Mines of Moria, this detour they're taking through the mountains or underneath the mountains, Frodo, he seems exhausted and he seems overwhelmed and he seems afraid. And finally, when discussing someone else who is after the ring, not Sauron, but someone else, Frodo exclaims, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened." We get this, right? We don't always choose the burden. We don't always get to choose the timing. We don't always get to choose how we will be stuck in the pressing. We all have seasons we wish we would have come upon us. Seasons where we're constantly trying to push through the pressure of grief and exhaustion and uncertainty. Over the course of our Lenten season, we have been looking at this a lot. A few weeks ago, we looked at how Jesus was being pressed. We looked at him seeking out community with the disciples. Last week, we talked about the hopelessness that we feel trapped in with sin. As we shift to looking at the disciples this week, we continue to see them struggle. As we looked at them last week, we saw how disoriented they were. We saw how even as they were willing to follow Jesus, they were inadequate. This week, the struggle, it continues. Here is what we read today. Again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping? Are you still taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." The disciples, they are in their own Moria moment. They are exhausted, they're overwhelmed, and they're spiritually disoriented. They keep falling asleep, and to us watching, they are clearly not ready for what Jesus is calling them to. Last week, we began to wrestle with that first heartbreaking scene where Jesus returns to his closest friends only to find them asleep. And he offers that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak line. And we looked at it. It's this gentle recognition that they can't do it all themselves. Then we applied that truth primarily to our own recurring battles with sin. But as we pick up the story today, we know it's not all about sin. It's also about the exhaustion that this world pours on top of us. Here's how this scene changes. This is not just a one-off moment where he sees them sleeping and then he comes back later and they're awake. No, he comes back a second time and they're still asleep. This wasn't just physical drowsiness, though. It's right here that the Gospel of Matthew, it provides a precise technical detail about their condition. A detail that should stop us in our tracks. He writes that their eyes were bebaremenoi. Isn't that a fun word? Bebaremenoi. I said it right that time. This Greek word, it doesn't simply mean that they were sleepy. It comes from the verb bareo, which means to weigh down or to crush with a burden. So when Matthew says that their eyes were bebaremenoi, he is offering a vivid, almost medical-like diagnosis. This wasn't casual doziness. Their eyelids, they were literally being pressed down in this place of the pressing, as if by an oppressive, invisible force, as if they were being acted upon. They were victims of a weight they physically could not lift. A third time, Jesus, he returns to tell them that the hour is upon him and that their betrayers are at hand, and they are still asleep. Most of us would expect this to be the point where Jesus tells them that they cannot follow him anymore. Most of us would expect that after 3 strikes, they would be out completely. Most of us would expect this to be the end of Jesus' patience. I mean, throughout the gospel, Jesus is telling the disciples and the crowds alike to be alert. That's what we read in Mark chapter 13 when Jesus says, beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It's like a man going on a journey when he leaves home and puts his slaves in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on watch. Therefore, keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight or at cockcrow or at dawn, or else he may find you asleep when he comes. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake. You know, reading this passage, Jesus' command to keep awake, it almost sounds like a warning. It sounds like he's saying, if you are not ready, you will be sorry. Which makes this whole reading here, when the disciples literally can't keep awake, strange for us. Because when he finds them asleep for the third time, his words are not too bad, or you are out of here, or you have failed for the last times. His words are get up. Let us be going. In one of his final actions as their master, he shows them mercy and grace. Even as he calls them to keep awake and to pray and to watch with him, he still makes them a part of God's work. Here I think we see something that the text in Mark where Jesus tells everyone to stay alert. This is not a text meant to condemn people. It's a text meant to empower people. Jesus is telling the disciples that when he goes away, he is going to leave them with the keys to the kingdom. Each of them will have a different job. Each of them will be important. And of course, it's going to be important that they stay on watch when he's gone. They are going to be doing the work of God's kingdom. And yet, I think this is why it feels so condemning, because of the immensity of the task that's been set before them. That's why it feels condemning to us when we don't live into the lives that we think we should be living. We don't think that we're doing well enough. We work and 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 we work. And then we run into a wall and into another wall and into a wall and into a wall and into a wall until finally we realize that it's not working, it's not happening. We can't do it. We can't keep awake. We can't stay alert. We can't do everything that we want to do all on our own. The burden is too big. And we feel like failures. And so when I hear Jesus tell the disciples to get up, I am encouraged. I'm encouraged because it means that being part of God's kingdom, it's not about being perfect every single moment. We try. We really do. But it's about God calling us to continue working after we stumble. And to do that does not mean monumental action. It does not mean that we are perfect before we enter into Jesus' work. It only requires that we rise up. Jesus doesn't say, I have to go. He says, let us go. In the disciples' journey, this will be far more important after Jesus' resurrection than right now. But here we see Jesus' call to them doesn't begin after Easter. It begins right now. It begins when they are going through it. It begins when they do not know how they are going to get through to tomorrow, when they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. This is where the promise of Jesus meets us today. We know we are a people who are tired. We're not only fighting against our own struggle with sin, we are fighting against all the brokenness in this world. We're fighting to keep up with a pace that burns us out. And to all of us, Jesus says, get up. Not only does he say get up, but he also says the time is here and the hour has arrived. When it becomes clear that we cannot do it, we run into the moment when he will do it for us. This is what's happening in our story today. We run into this moment where when we simply cannot do it on our own, God takes over and lifts the burdens that we thought we had to handle all by ourselves. You know, Frodo, seemingly against all odds, he does make it to the top of Mount Doom. By the time he gets there, the burden he has carried has made him a shell of his former self. He finds it hard to remember what life was like before this burden was placed upon him. Back when he was still in the Shire, his home was the last place that he really felt like he had joy. He doesn't even remember what it was like. The burden has been so crushing and so overwhelming. The last few steps up to Mount Doom, he has to be carried. It appears that he can't rise up on his own anymore. And then finally, when he stands at the edge of the cliff, holding this ring over top of the fires of Mount Doom, so it can be destroyed and so that Sauron will ultimately fall, it is no surprise, or it should be no surprise to us, that he is overcome and unable to do it. He's unable to finish the job. He cannot do it anymore. The power of the ring and the overwhelming weight of the journey finally overcome him. He decides to keep the ring for himself. He decides to hold on to the burden rather than letting it go. He decides that the burden of the ring should take place over the burden of destroying it. And for a moment, it looks like Frodo is going to be completely lost. It's only at this moment that something absolutely miraculous happened. The burden, this ring, it's ripped from his hands. Even as he tries to hold on to it, it slips away. And against all odds and completely against his will in that moment, the ring is destroyed. And with the burden taken away, he is finally able to get up. Friends, nobody finishes running their race without stumbling. In our regular lives, we feel overwhelmed. Many of us are going through seasons right now that dwarf what regular life looks like. And in these moments, we too find that it is impossible to bear our burdens anymore. It's impossible in our best times. Here's the good news for us today. Jesus picks it up when we cannot make it. Jesus takes our burdens from us. That's what he's doing on the cross. He's ripping the burden that we were holding onto so tightly away and dying for us. He's doing it when we feel like we can't let go of what this world has put onto us. And in this, he continues to call us. He continues to make a way for us to rise up. And he continues to make a way for us to move into new life, a life that will bring God's joy once more. Would y'all pray with me? Almighty God, we know that you have said that your yoke is easy and that your burden is light. Help us to take off ours. Help us to hand over any kind of burdens that we have and put them at your feet today. Help us to know your goodness, your grace, and your mercy. God, give us strength for the journey, but also take off our packs. Help us know that you alone save. And that even while we work in your kingdom, we work for your goodness, that you are truly the one in control. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.